Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly roundup of news from across the continent. I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless. Coming up, remembering the man who's often dubbed Africa's Ché Guevara 3 decades after the assassination of Burkina Faso's former president Thomas Sankara, our correspondents return to the site of the bloody 1987 counter-coup. Locking their doors and staying inside, a serial killer and rapist is on the loose in the Ugandan capital of Kampala, forcing women to avoid leaving their homes at night. And the so-called Grand Canyon of Africa brought back from the brink. Ethiopia's Simian Mountains National Park is no longer on UNESCO's danger list. But first, it's been 30 years since the assassination of Burkina Faso's former president Thomas Sankara. The revolutionary leader, often dubbed Africa's Ché Guevara, is a hero to many Africans. It's the first time an international TV channel has been granted access to the building where Sankara was killed in 1987. Our correspondents met the sole survivor from that deadly counter-coup.
Under Blaise Compaoré's 27-year rule, this building of the Council of Understanding, a West African regional cooperation forum, was practically inaccessible. Aluna Traoré is the sole survivor from October 15, 1987, the day Thomas Sankara was killed.
When we were told to go out, get out, get out, the first to leave was President Thomas Sankara. That's how we got outside, and all the bodies were on this side.
Aluna takes us to the room where the meeting with Thomas Sankara was held on that fateful Thursday. Sankara's murder is one of the most high-profile killings in Africa's post-independence history and has haunted the West African country for decades.
This is where President Thomas Sankara was seated. We were sitting like this, in a semicircle, in front of him.
30 years later, emotions are still raw.
I cannot describe my feelings. I remember vividly my colleague and my boss. He will always remain my boss. I lost him here.
Another witness on the other side of the city remembers the night well. Yamba Malik Sawadogo was a political prisoner on the day of the coup that brought Compaoré to power and the day Sankara was killed. He claims he and 20 other prisoners buried Thomas Sankara and 12 other victims.
This is where Thomas Sankara and his 12 colleagues were buried. We started burying them one by one, and then we realized that there were 13 bodies instead of 10, and one of the bodies was in fact Thomas Sankara.
These witness accounts cannot be officially verified. Despite the fall of Blaise Compaoré in 2014, mystery still clouds the truth behind Thomas Sankara's assassination.
Police in Uganda are on the hunt for a serial killer, a suspect who's been waging a campaign of terror in the capital Kampala, raping and murdering several women over the past 6 months. Pressure is mounting on authorities to catch the criminal or criminals as the brutal killings continue, sending shockwaves through the country. Gronya Harrington and Thais Brooke have the story.
In this tranquil town by the shores of Lake Victoria, there's an undercurrent of fear. 12 women have been murdered in this area since May. Anatoly's wife was the 5th to be killed. This is his first time to return to the scene of the crime since the night of her death.
It was here because that plant was there, as I can remember. So the body was lying here, bent. It was bent like this. And the stick was protruding from behind.
Anatoly is still struggling with what he saw that night.
It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I couldn't believe it was Rose.
The police believe that Rose was murdered by a serial killer. Several of the other victims were sex workers. Most of the bodies were found in the same area, most strangled, and most with a stick inserted into their genitals. But as the arrests continue, so do the murders. The people here are living in fear, wondering who could be next. This hairdresser knew Rose. They were neighbours.
I'm scared and I fear. I don't know because we are doing the same job, almost the same years. And what happened to her, it may happen to me also.
When the murders first began in the suburbs of Kampala, there were numerous theories. Domestic violence, crimes of passion, ritual sacrifices. The police won't confirm how many suspects they have in custody, but they say they've prevented further killings in recent days.
Clues point at individuals or groups of people. We go for those, and the investigation does not halt until we conclude it. So we think we have the suspected criminals in this case, and we cannot guarantee that we have all of them.
Investigators say the murders around Kampala aren't linked to those in Entebbe, about 40 kilometres from the capital. But with no single suspect and no clear motive for now, women in Entebbe are simply being warned not to go out alone at night.
Next, it's an initiative that could save thousands of young lives. In the DRC capital of Kinshasa, health officials and UNICEF have joined forces to hand out medical kits to vulnerable families living in isolated communities. Malaria and childhood illnesses have devastated the country, where 1 out of 10 children dies before the age of 5. Our correspondent Thomas Sankara reports.
It takes almost 1 hour on a canoe to reach some neighborhoods of Kinshasa. Located on small islands on the Congo River, these communities are very vulnerable to childhood illnesses. Through local representatives, these families are now being given a medical kit.
My job is to hand out the family kits, but also to check on mothers and babies. It's important that I'm from this community because these people know me, so it's easier for them to trust me.
Complete with paracetamol, micronutrients and zinc, the family kits allow parents to respond early on to fever or diarrhea, which can prove lethal for small children.
My child was losing his hair, his feet were swollen, and he was losing a lot of weight and strength. But now he's doing much better. I'm very happy. Thanks to the kits, his health has improved.
Backed by the Ministry of Health, UNICEF has done its utmost to ensure that the kits were distributed out in several provinces. DR Congo is the first country in the world to benefit from the initiative, and the results are already noticeable.
Over the last 3 months in this area, the number of cases of diarrheal disease has dropped 10%, so the results are already significant.
In DR Congo, 1 of 10 children dies before the age of 5. UNICEF hopes the family kits will soon be distributed throughout the country. Maybe someday they will help reduce infant mortality, which remains one of Congo's main health issues.
To an ecological success story in Ethiopia. The country's Simien Mountains National Park has been removed from UNESCO's danger list. This after more than 2 decades of painstaking conservation work. Dubbed the Grand Canyon of Africa, this spectacular part of the Ethiopian highlands suffered from decades of poaching and habitat destruction. Nathalie Tissot has more.
Spanning 400 square kilometers, Simien Mountains National Park is one of Ethiopia's most storied tourist destinations.
This becomes one of the stronghold of the species which has become under extinct. The one which is Wali ibex, which is found only in these places, and the Gilada monkeys. They prefer these places because of this terrain. They want to protect themselves from a hyena or predator.
Beyond the usual predators, the animal population has faced threats from hunting and overgrazing, and this road that cuts across the park. Nearly 20 years ago, the site was added to the list of World Heritage Sites in danger. These days, a new bypass road is under construction and has displaced part of the human population here.
There was a village which was called Gitch, and this was a long process to work with them, to convince them to move out of the park.
The government has financed the relocation of 212 households beyond the park's border, but 4,500 remain on site. Thanks to conservation measures, the numbers of gelada monkeys and the Wali ibex have increased, but animals like the Ethiopian wolf remain in peril.
We are really grateful for the effort the government is making, but off the list is just the start. We have to maintain the park to be off the list, so we need even more efforts. It's not only the government, the people and the international community.
But beyond this international recognition, the Ethiopian government is looking for a bump in tourism, hoping to attract even more people to this national park that draws 25,000 visitors each year.
And finally, after storming theatres in Belgium, France and the Netherlands, hit play Jihad was performed in Morocco to sell out audiences. Ismail Saidi's work tells the tale of 3 disaffected young men from Brussels who head to the battlefields of Syria to fight alongside extremist militants. Critics have hailed the piece as gutsy for daring to shine a comic light on radicalisation. This report from Sarah Doubier, Josh Vardy and Jean-Marie Lemaire.
At the heart of the El Jadida Medina on the Moroccan coast, a Portuguese church has been transformed into a theatre to host the play Jihad. It's the first time it's been performed in a North African country, and it's already sold out. The play has now been performed more than 300 times.
It's not that bad to tour the same play for almost 3 years and still face new challenges. It injects a bit of excitement into the tour.
The play itself keeps evolving. Having been translated into Italian, German and even Japanese, it's now being translated into Darija, the Moroccan dialect.
Once we've finished the tour here, we'll adapt the project so it can be shown in Moroccan neighbourhoods, in towns where people don't necessarily speak French.
The play has educational aims and so needs to be understood by the widest variety of people possible, the humour as well as the drama. Its audience are particularly taken by its tragic aspect.
It's quite fascinating to see that we always get the same reaction, whether it's for the play or for the debate. People laugh and cry at the same bits, they're afraid of the same things. It's pretty interesting.
After every performance, the author responds to questions from the audience, many of whom say the play has an important message.
I think that we have to show this kind of theatre. It can put doubts in the mind of people who could easily be indoctrinated.
It pinpoints human stupidity and what happens to our adolescents when they get involved in these problems, in these things that we now see every day.
A new play, the second part of a trilogy dealing with radicalization, is already out on tour. A cinema adaptation of Jihad is due to be released in early 2019.
Thanks again for joining us. Remember, you can catch up with past shows on our website and also connect with us on social media. Keep it right here on France 24. Lots more news coming up.